So Hillary Clinton made an appearance on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, and he dedicated 6 minutes to allow his female writers of the show to come out and thank Hillary Clinton for being a role model to them. And there was also a surprise appearance by Miley Cyrus. Now, unfortunately, I can't play the full segment for you, but I do have a short 10-second clip, and I assure you that that is more than enough for you to grasp the totality of its ridiculousness. Take a look.
Thank you, Hillary, for being a constant beacon of strength, hope, and determination for me and millions of other young women.
Yeah, that was a really pathetic clip, because you have minutes of airtime, 6 minutes specifically, which is a lot, dedicated to an oligarch that propped up Donald Trump and ultimately gave us Donald Trump with her Pied Piper strategy for her own narcissistic reasons. This is someone that's so selfish that she gambled with the lives of millions of Americans by colluding with the DNC to rig the primary against a candidate that would have ultimately defeated Donald Trump. So needless to say, I have a lot of problems with that particular clip, but if you watched that clip and got angry, don't be angry, because if you are angered by that clip, then you're giving Peter Dow exactly what he wants, because he tweeted out, "You can just feel the haters consumed by rage when they watch this." But Peter, it's not that we're consumed with rage, we're consumed with embarrassment and shame. And this clip is shameful because it idolized a neoliberal warmonger that pushed for policies that catalyzed death and destruction in the Middle East and North Africa. I mean, the policy she lobbied for catalyzed mass incarceration for people of color. So thanking Hillary Clinton for her self-serving career, where she represented nobody but herself and her Wall Street donors, I think that's embarrassing. So I'm not angered by it, Peter. I'm embarrassed. But believe it or not, my goal in talking about this clip wasn't to harp on Hillary Clinton, because I've done that. I've spent countless hours telling you all the problems I have with Hillary Clinton. But what I really wanted to talk about is how so-called comedians prop up the political establishment in the United States. And Jimmy Fallon is probably the #1 offender of this. So it's not like he just worships Hillary Clinton, as you might have gathered from this clip, but he worships the establishment in general. He practically begged Chris Christie to tell him whether or not he'd be running for president, and was seemingly excited about the prospect of Chris Christie running. And he brought Obama on multiple times, which isn't really surprising because Obama did go on a lot of late night shows. But one clip in particular stood out because he literally helped Obama sell the Trans-Pacific Partnership to the American people.
Are you saying you're down with TPP? Yeah, you know me.
So it's not as though, these are harmless appearances where Jimmy Fallon has these politicians on to joke with them. I mean, he's literally pushing their agenda, and it doesn't matter, what that agenda is. As long as it's the agenda promoted by the political establishment and the status quo, then Jimmy Fallon is all over it. So I think it's important that people know that underneath all of the fake laughter and the desk slapping that you see from Jimmy Fallon and all the contrived, brainless dialogue is a really harmful pro-establishment agenda. And Jimmy Fallon isn't alone, even though he may be the worst when it comes to promoting the establishment, because Jimmy Kimmel also tends to get political every now and then, but his commentary on American politics, I mean, it never passes the bounds of what the elite class feels is appropriate. He never ventures outside the Overton window. So when he talks about, for example, healthcare, he talked about healthcare with his kid, he never brings up Medicare for all. He talks about it in the confines of defending the Affordable Care Act as if that would be sufficient, when there are 30 million people in the country that are left out. So when you talk about these sorts of things, like, I'm glad that Jimmy Kimmel is drawing attention to issues like, gun violence and healthcare, but he only discusses it so long as it is appropriate in the context of mainstream American political dialogue. He won't actually call for Medicare for all. Now, I don't necessarily know that he is, consciously promoting the establishment's agenda. Maybe he doesn't know about Medicare for all, but certainly, the problem with these so-called comedians is they only prop up the status quo. And the same is true for Samantha Bee and Trevor Noah and, of course, Bill Maher, where they don't necessarily prop up the entire political status quo, but they certainly prop up the Democratic Party establishment, which is also very problematic. I mean, what we're effectively seeing is pro-establishment propaganda disguised as late-night comedy, which is really problematic because it promotes this idea subconsciously that the establishment is good no matter what. If someone in Congress or a governor tells you something, then you should accept it because they are part of the establishment, and the establishment is inherently good because the establishment is mainstream, because the establishment is in power. And it all just has this Orwellian feel to it that it doesn't sit right with me. Now, I don't want to be accused of promoting conspiracy theories about how Jimmy Fallon has meetings behind closed doors with Chuck Schumer and Donald Trump about how to promote the oligarchy's agenda, but what I am encouraging you to do is to be a responsible consumer of media. When you watch something, certainly something on television, you need to question it. You need to question their motives, regardless if those motives are conscious or subconscious. You need to question whether or not politicians are using comedy as a means of promoting their pro-corporate agenda, because it's hidden, it's subtle. And that certainly means that you need to apply the same level of scrutiny to independent media progressives too. I mean, I want you to scrutinize me and hold me to a high standard as well. We have to be responsible consumers of media. We can't censor Jimmy Fallon. We can't censor people on YouTube. We just have to be responsible and know sometimes people have a hidden agenda. Maybe it's subconscious when Jimmy Fallon does it, but certainly when Chris Christie and Obama go on that show, he has an agenda. He tried to promote the TPP. We have Chris Christie trying to prop up his presidential campaign. We have him thanking Hillary Clinton as if she was an altruistic figure when she's a self-serving narcissist. I mean, we have to question their motives. We have to question what establishment media, is doing. So that's the takeaway. I just want people to be mindful of what's going on and not allow a hidden political agenda to slip through the cracks under the guise of comedy, because that's very harmful. I think that we need to be aware of propaganda, no matter in what form it takes.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.